Alright you guys, I've got some oldies, some newies. Let's talk about celebrities who predicted their own deaths and, of course, the prediction of the day the music died. Starting off our list today with none other than Kurt Cobain, the man whose death brought about the idea of the 27 Club. For those of you who don't know who Kurt Cobain is, shouldn't you be studying your times tables right about now? I'm just kidding, but also finish your homework. If you actually don't know who he was, Kurt Cobain was the lead vocalist and guitarist, as well as the main songwriter of a 90s grunge band called Nirvana. He was also a founding member of the band Not America. If you still don't know what I'm talking about, look up Teen Spirit and go nuts. Now, back to the list. Because if Kurt Cobain is on the list, he must have done something to make the list. And he did. At the age of just 14 years old, grunge rock legend Kurt Cobain predicted his own death when he told a classmate that he would become a superstar musician, get rich and famous, and then take his own life, going out in a blaze of glory. Which of course is exactly what happened. He became one of the biggest names in music, garnered a lot of fame, made a lot of money, and then on April 5th of 1994, he joined the 27 Club in a blaze of glory, so to speak, after firing a projectile at himself, ending his life in his own home in Seattle. Okay, if you're too young to know who Kurt Cobain is, you have to know Juice WRLD. If you were one of Nirvana's biggest fans in the 90s and you don't know who Juice is, you get a pass. Juice WRLD was, in my opinion, an incredibly talented artist. His music genre has been classified as alternative hip-hop, emo rap, and emo hip-hop rap rock. Basically, if you want to be sad, listen to Wishing Well. If you want to feel heartbroken, listen to All Girls Are the Same and Lucid Dreams. And if you want to feel like you're the man of the year, even though you've still got problems, listen to Man of the Year. Back to the list. On Sunday, December 8th of 2019, Juice WRLD died of an accidental pill overdose at the age of 21 years old. In Juice WRLD's song Wishing Well, which was released 7 months after his death, there is a line that goes, "If it wasn't for the pills, I wouldn't be here, but if I keep taking these pills, I won't be here." Not only that, but Juice WRLD died on a Sunday, and in his song Sippin' Red, aka Sprite Bleedin', he says that he wants to meet his demons and that he will meet them on a Sunday. Next on our list today we have Jimi Hendrix, an American guitarist, songwriter, and singer in the 1960s. If you don't know who Jimi Hendrix is but enjoy electric guitar and a solid hippie rock kind of vibe, I highly recommend you check out his music. Voodoo Child, Purple Haze, and Hey Joe are among some of his most popular works. But of course, another song comes to mind in relation to the idea that Jimi Hendrix actually predicted his own death, and that is the Ballad of Jimi, which was recorded by the artist in 1965. In the song, Hendrix says, "Many things he would try, for he knew soon he'd die. Now Jimmy's gone, he's not alone, his memory still lives on. 5 years, this he said, he's not gone, he's just dead." Exactly 5 years later, Jimi Hendrix, whose real name was James Marshall Hendrix, died of an overdose, but his memory has lived on, just as he said it would ever since. Next up, we have Princess Diana, and if you don't know who this is, I actually can't help you. The former wife of the current King of England, King Charles III, Diana has often been referred to as the People's Princess, and for good reason too. She was caring and kind and empathetic and humble, and she really knew how to rock a revenge dress. To be honest, I don't actually know that much about her. I grew up in the Caribbean, but I've heard all good things. However, on Sunday, August 31st of 1997, the princess died in a car crash in Paris after being chased through the streets by paparazzi. After the incident, the British public and, well, pretty much everyone else in the world began to speculate that the then prince, now King Charles, had orchestrated the princess's death so that it may be easier for him to remarry. These speculations were not put to bed in 2003 when a note written by the departed princess was shared with the public. A note that read, "My husband is planning an accident in my car, brake failure and serious head injury in order to make the path clear for him to marry Tiggy." She was killed just a few years after the note was written. Next up, we have xxxTentacion. Now, if you were out of high school when the People's Princess died, I do not expect you to know who I am talking about. xxxTentacion became popular in 2015 after releasing his breakthrough single Look at Me, which became incredibly popular on music streaming platform SoundCloud before being re-released through Empire Distribution in February of 2017, during which time the single reached number 34 on the Billboard Hot 100. X's music, similar to Juice's, fell under the genre of emo rap, and some of his top songs include Jocelyn Flores, Sad, and Moonlight. X died on June 18th of 2018. He was killed in Deerfield Beach in Florida after being hit by a projectile at point-blank range while in his car during a robbery gone wrong. Here's the thing though, about 8 months prior to his death, X hopped on Instagram Live and said, "Worst things come to worst, I die a tragic death and I am not able to live out my dreams." 6 months after the rapper's death, Train Food was released, which many believe to be an artistic description of the events that took place on the night of his passing, as it describes his feeling of fear knowing that death is just around the corner. Next up, we've got Mikey Welsh, American artist and musician who played bass for several bands including Weezer. Now, if you don't know Weezer, I'm assuming you have not yet graduated from middle school, but that's okay because I am here and I will tell you, after this video is done, you need to look up Say It Ain't So and Beverly Hills, because literally everyone knows those songs and you look silly walking around without ever having heard them before. Honestly though, even if you think you haven't heard them, you probably have, because everyone has heard those songs. Anyways, back to Mikey Welsh, artist, bass player, and yet another celebrity to predict their own death. On October 8th of 2011, Mikey Welsh died of a heart attack caused by an overdose in a hotel room in Chicago. So where does the prediction come in? Well, on September 26th of 2011, about a week and a half before his passing, Mikey Welsh tweeted this: "Dreamt I died in Chicago next weekend. Heart attack in my sleep. Need to write my will today." While it could be a coincidence, the accuracy of that tweet is just too strange to ignore. Moving on now to Frank Pastore, an American baseball player and radio host, because I wouldn't want to leave out my sports fans. For those of you who aren't sports fans, or who are but don't watch baseball, or for those of you who watch baseball but don't follow the Cincinnati Reds, the Minnesota Twins, or the Texas Rangers, or for those of you who do but just don't know who Frank Pastore is, Frank Pastore was a pitcher for the Cincinnati Reds from 1979 until 1985, for the Minnesota Twins in 1986, and for the Texas Rangers organization in 1987. He was also the host of an afternoon Christian radio talk show on KKLA in Los Angeles from 2004 to 2012. On November 19th of 2012, during an episode of his talk show, The Frank Pastore Show, Frank stated that he could easily die from someone hitting him on his motorcycle on the 210 freeway. Later that day, while riding his motorcycle down the 210 freeway, he was struck by a Hyundai Sonata. He was taken to the hospital, but he died about a month later from injuries received during the accident. Next up, we have Mark Twain, because much like I wouldn't want to leave out my sports fans, I wouldn't want to leave out my intellectuals either. For those of you who don't know, I'm not judging, Mark Twain was an American writer and humorist. He wrote many famous novels, including The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court, and A Gilded Age, A Tale of Today. He also has some pretty famous quotes, such as "Always obey your parents when they are present," "A full belly is little worth when the mind is starved," and "A man cannot be comfortable without his own approval." Mark Twain was born on November 30th of 1835, just 2 weeks after Halley's Comet passed by Earth, which it does every 75 years. Now in 1909, Twain said, "I came in with Halley's Comet back in 1835. It's coming again next year and I expect to go out with it." And on April 21st of 2010, at the age of 74, he did exactly that, dying just one day after Halley's Comet passed by Earth. Next up, we have Patsy Cline. Now, if you don't know who Patsy Cline is, I'm just gonna say it, you're crazy. Crazy for feeling so lonely. See, the problem with that joke is that it only makes sense if you know who Patsy Cline is, and that just makes me fall to pieces. Alright, for those of you who don't know, Patsy Cline was an American singer from the state of Virginia, considered to be one of the most influential vocalists of the 20th century. She was also one of the first artists to make the switch from country over to pop, which is ironic because I feel like currently we're seeing a lot of artists switch over from pop and hip-hop to country. But right now we're talking about Patsy, an icon who became popular in the early 1960s. Some of her most popular pieces of music include Crazy, I Fall to Pieces, Walkin' After Midnight, Sweet Dreams, and She's Got You. Patsy died on May 5th of 1963 after her plane crashed just 13 minutes after taking off in Kansas City, Kansas. It was later reported that just 1 week prior to her death, Patsy had said to a fellow singer, Ray Walker, "Honey, I've had 2 bad car accidents. The third one will either be a charm or it'll kill me." While it wasn't a car accident that killed her, the timing of her statement and the fact that she perished in a transportation accident and the fact that she was and still is an icon is what has earned her a spot on this list today. And finally, we have Buddy Holly. If you don't know him, get to know him. In fact, you should be listening to him every day. Okay, that's not necessary, but you should listen to his song Every Day, which was released by the American singer-songwriter on September 20th of 1957. Buddy Holly was like the original Elvis. He was a rock and roll legend and part of the inspiration behind the song American Pie. Now seriously, if you don't know that song, listen to it directly after this video ends because it might just be one of the best classics to ever exist. Like, ever. But that's just one YouTuber's opinion. Back to Buddy. Buddy Holly died on February 3rd of 1959 in the middle of his winter dance party tour alongside Ritchie Valens and the Big Bopper. They were killed in a plane crash that touched ground just outside of Clear Lake, Iowa. Here's the thing, shortly before the tour began, Buddy Holly had a dream that he was sitting in a plane. And that same night, his wife Maria had a dream of a fireball descending from the sky and crashing into a field. It turns out both of their dreams came true. The collective deaths of Buddy, Ritchie, and the Big Bopper are now referred to as the day the music died. Alright you guys, that's a pretty big list with some pretty big names. I hope you learned something. If I missed any, let me know in the comments. I've been your host, Hannah Thompson, and I will see you in the next video.